Tanti, you're back.
G'day, mate. How are you?
Nice to see you, John. Thank you so much. Tandles, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you
Great. It's
today?
really lovely to see you. I first need to explain that John Graham has fallen off his bike and he's in emergency at the moment, working on his knee. You know, as I said to you, John, I don't know how anybody rides a bike around the city. They're going to kill themselves. It's crazy.
Well, trying to be healthy. How many times are people trying to be healthy and they have some
no point.
catastrophic sort of,
No point. Just eat the chicken and chips, I say. Chicken, go to KFC, get into it. Look, thank you so much for joining us today, John. We've got a lot to get through here. It's a lot to talk about because there's been some amazing changes. Tanti, do you want to say hello to John and give us a rundown of what... Oh, are you right, Tandles?
Yes.
Did you just fall off your chair? You didn't.
Hello?
Is she all right? Hello? I don't believe it. Tanti, are you okay?
Another...
Oh, she's okay. She's just... just 1 second. All right, so look, we'll get back to Tanti in a minute. She's obviously hiding something around down there. I don't know. It's probably a birthday cake or something. Hey, Tandles, I hope you're all right.
Involved again?
Everybody's falling off their bikes. John, this is the 4th time you've been with us. Incredible. It's been an amazing time for you and time for us and time for musicians, not just the COVID situation, but we've actually had a whole bunch of laws changed for the music and the live music sector. Now, can you give us an idea? Apparently there were 63 amendments to what's just gone on. Can you give us a bit of an idea of not all 63 of them, but an idea of what they were all about? What the old system was?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, this is for New South Wales, and after such a long lead-in, the state government brought in legislation for the 24-hour economy. Yep. The government have a plan for Greater Sydney, and this was a toolkit for the minister and for the new commissioner and councils to grow the nighttime economy. There's such a long lead in here. There have been parliamentary inquiries, there have been roundtables, a lot of engagement from the music industry, from hospitality, from tourism, and from lockouts, really global and domestic attention. So it was quite a dynamic space. And as the legislation came into the parliament, various people saw an opportunity to make some further changes to it. And whilst there are 63 amendments to the bill, not all of those were about live music and performance, but most of them were. Okay. There are other parts of the bill around same-day alcohol sales and some associated things there, but really the vast bulk of it was around the regulation of live music and entertainment, and it has been quite an intense couple of months, but everybody's sitting back and looking at what's been achieved and saying, wow, this is actually pretty amazing.
Just before we go any further, Tanti, are you okay? What happened to you?
It's very funny, but I won't go into it now. Anyway.
Okay. All right. Well, it looked good. It looked fantastic. You're alive, and that's all that matters. We thought maybe you just kind of ended up in emergency with John Graham. But look,
yeah.
Let me ask you, John, how long have these laws been in our? How long have they been in the system?
Well, some of them have been in for a very long time. The profile issue has been entertainment conditions on venues. You can see I've got the mirror ball up here. Mirror balls. Yeah. Well, if you had a mirror ball in a restaurant like Lazy Bones, you would get a visit from licensing police, and they would be that you would be. Your liquor license would be brought into question. It's called venue morphing. If you've got a restaurant, you're behaving like a nightclub, then that's a breach of your license.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So this was the problem with the mirror balls. Having dance floors as well, it was considered like your venue morphing. It's a change of use. You're not really a restaurant.
Give me a couple more of those laws that were in.
This is many. Entertainment conditions, restricting genres, saying on liquor licenses you can only, like the Stone Crow was a classic, you can play soft jazz or have CDs. There was you could play. There were just hundreds of these. So
give me an idea
no
for something like that, like music restrictions. What was the purpose of that in the day?
Well, the purpose was really around around managing amenity, sound and noise, and managing impacts on the community, and often a point in time. It was put on a license at some stage back in the dark ages, and if you want to go to modify your license or your planning consent, that's then an opportunity to look at your trading hours or your floor area, or all sorts of other metrics that are actually on your license. So businesses were really reticent, and also on planning approvals now. Businesses don't really want to go out on public exhibition and have everybody looking in at their business saying, oh, okay, is that how it works? We want to, oh, well, actually, I'm going to put in a submission, and no, they're trading too late. No, we don't like that. Yeah. These are the risks that businesses would face when they would go to vary their conditions. Yeah. Now, there's been a vast amount of work done on this through the legislation and really unpacking them line by line. Yeah. Instruments, number of musicians, mirror these in the new laws had to have a line item to say we're going to stop regulating them and we're not going to regulate them in the future. But not only that, there's parallel laws in the planning system that now say in the future a council can't put these on new planning approvals. And also on existing planning approvals as well, councils can start to unpack them with a new process. Yeah. Now, this is just one of the multitude of issues that were addressed here. But, these have impacted businesses incredibly. There's about almost 100 restaurants and small bars that had complete prohibitions on them. Yeah. Not allowed to have music. They've all gone. Great. So great. All of those businesses, they've all gone.
Now there's a little cafe next door to me, and they're kind of it's a big block of offices, and she runs the cafe out the back. Now she has a great area out the back, and she's never been able to have alcohol, and she actually tried to get it a couple of months ago, and eventually got it, but it took forever, and it was expensive. And now with COVID, that's gone. Yeah. The whole thing's just gone, and she's ended up with a license she can't even use. So I also know that so many times I've asked people, because I live around Surrey Hills, what's the deal for you to have live music, or what's the deal for you to have alcohol in here? And they just go, hands up, it's too hard. So has these laws been changed, made that easier?
Yes, absolutely, and in a multiplicity of ways. Firstly, for licensed premises, you no longer need a separate approval to have entertainment. So if you've got a restaurant, a bar, a licensed cafe, or a club, or a hotel, or a general bar, you can have entertainment without any separate approval.
Does that cost the venue? Does that cost the venue extra money?
License. No, nothing.
Right.
No, absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. Now, part of the changes now will mean that if you want to become a small bar, for example, then once you've got your development approval, your planning approval, once council says, yes, you've done the DA, you've got that use, then the liquor license will then be more procedural. So you're able to trade whilst that license is in process. Yeah. This is cutting the duplication. Duplication is a chronic problem that every step of the way businesses have a liquor license and they have a planning approval. And what's exciting about where this new coordinated reforms are going is they are dealing with these chronic rusted on problems that have just been impossible for businesses to navigate. And, talk to talked to Caroline at Butcher's Brew about her experiences. When the bill was in the house, in the upper house, and it was going through, I had a few minutes with the planning minister outside, Rob Stokes, and his team, and I spoke to him about people that I know who lost a lot of money, people that had took payouts from work, or wanted to set up a bar, wanted to have music, and this has happened over years now, and the process has been so difficult and complex that they would take out commercial leases on businesses and then get in the process and ultimately run out of money and give up and walk away. And I don't know if you know people that have done this, but I know people personally that tried and failed because of the complexity, and it's, lost houses, lost things like this. It's pretty devastating. And we don't want to see people with the best intents to set up a music venue, to provide jobs, have great food, have fantastic music, and end up walking away empty-handed. This is, these measures are going to really cut back on those risks for people. For liquor license premises, most of our live music is really indexed to bars, whether licensed premises. We don't. When you're in a shopping centre, we don't see bands in a clothes shop, do we? We don't see performances in retail spaces as such. But there's changes to the planning system here that now allow this, and it's because there was a lack of certainty in how you would go about doing these things. There's new rules about exempt development that will mean. The great example is Kerry Glasscock, who everyone knows through Sydney Fringe and Venue 505.
She's been on
Sydney
here
Fringe,
with you.
Trying to put absolutely, and she has done some of the best work in activating, in research and analysis of activating non-traditional spaces. She wanted to put on a play on in a hairdresser, and it was about the change of use and the building codes. Well, now there are tools that are going to enable that. If she wants to put a play on in a hairdresser, and this is the sorts of things that we really want to start to see enabled. Theatre in retail.
I love this idea. Love this idea. This is such a great idea. I mean, my brain's ticking already. If you go to the hairdresser, you're there for at minimum an hour. So why not have great times?
Well, yeah. I mean, what a perfect place for a musical.
Amazing. What a great idea.
Look, clothes shops, putting music on in retail, having a band on a Friday night, having some music, having some.
I think it's a great idea, John. You're cutting in and out at the moment, mate. So I'm going to, whenever I butt in, I'm not butting in on you. I'm just butting in because I'm getting crackles on you, or you're not syncing up. But yes, I think this is a great idea, and I wonder if a venue opens up. I mean, I know it's really difficult for a venue to open up, like even a small venue. It's an expensive thing. Is the cost going to come down a little bit? I know you're saying, like, with the cross-pollination, we're not actually going to have two laws or two things, but is the cost going to come down for licensing?
Costs are coming down by 80% on your base fee for a liquor license for your primary purpose venues.
Amazing.
80% reduction for primary venues for their base fee, and 80% reduction for their capacity loading. 80% down both, and if you're in the city of Sydney, you'll get an extra half an hour trading. Or if you are in any of the Great Southern Nights venues for the Great Southern Nights program, they're going to get an extra 30 minutes trading.
And how did you organise this? Must have been a massive event. How long did it take you to do this?
Well, there was a few people involved, not a lot.
Yeah.
And I think John Graham would be. I think we need to get John Graham back next year.
Yeah.
And also the ministers as well. The planning minister, Rob Stokes, Victor Dominello, the liquor licensing minister, and the Greens did some good work on the planning stuff, and Stuart Ayres, who has.
And how long did this take? How long did this take to be realised?
5 or 6 weeks.
Is that all?
Yeah,
I would have thought it'd take years, mate.
The bill. Well, but the years were down the track, you know.
Yeah.
This is how this happened. That the legislation was introduced into the lower house of the parliament, and it was just procedural. It didn't have any of the things that we're talking about here. It addressed a couple of the conditions on liquor licenses around genres, a number of musicians, but it didn't deal with dance floors or mirror balls or directions musicians were facing. So there's work to do there. There was a whole list of other things. But then, so once the bill was in the House, the music industry, myself and my colleague Nick Pickard from Abraham Cost, we went to see the government and we said, look, this isn't giving you the tools that you need to deliver your strategy. John Graham was working with his team. You know, we were talking to liquor licensing, liquor and gaming. So we just, and once the bill entered the upper house, that then provided an opportunity for some constructive contributions, I guess it's fair to say. And if you look at the parliamentary inquiries, a lot of these issues were raised through that process. So once amendments, people started saying, well, we should do this or should do that, should do that. There was no learning curve for the people in the parliament because they'd sat on committees that had looked at this through the nighttime economy inquiry. They'd been through the music and arts economy inquiry. There'd been roundtables about lockouts. There was inquiries about COVID and also about music festivals. So deep literacy about these things. Yeah. But really, there were very few people involved. It was the parliamentarians, the ministerial staff, and myself and Nicholas Pickard, really.
And did you get anybody balking at any of these ideas?
There was one amendment that held things up. I mean, that's a question for John Graham, who led... for me as an industry representative, I'm working with the government, I'm working with the opposition, I'm also working with the crossbench, going into Parliament, meeting with the Animal Justice Party, meeting with Kate Fairman and her team from the Greens, meeting with the Shooters Party, Shooters, Farmers and Fishers, who are very, very good on this stuff. It was interesting to hear One Nation speaking to this in the Parliament as well. They, you know, they're music lovers.
Yeah.
There's a lot of music lovers in the Parliament. So, but I mean, this is where having John Graham.
Yeah. Well, just for those of you that have just joined in, those of you that have just joined in, John Graham has fallen off his bike and is in emergency dealing with a knee injury. So that's why he's not here. Look, this is
one thing I'll say is that most people, particularly in local councils, local government, most people only saw these changes as they were uploaded to the Parliament website as they were about to go into the chamber.
Right.
So it was, yeah.
That's handy.
So well, look, it's interesting. It's going to be interesting down the track to see how the stories are told. Yeah. You remember I was running campaigns over 10 years ago. We changed the Pope laws. We changed the Liquor Act back in 2007. Yeah. This is how we learned how to do these things. Yeah. But the stories, you know, that came out from there were never actually, you know, quite right. So it's going to be really interesting to see from here.
Look, I tell you what I think
the narrative that unfolds.
What's going to be really interesting is to see that there's a lot more venues opening up. And what is amazing is if you've got, you know, venues there and their licensing bill is 80% less than what it used to be. Hopefully, in some ways, that entices the venue to look after the musicians a little bit better. correct?
Right. Absolutely. Yes. Well, very much. And I think this now enables discussions around musicians' pay, and that's a very interesting space at the moment with public money, with all of the public subsidy coming into the arts through COVID. There's quite a lot of grant programs happening.
Yeah.
But look, just to venues, I'm really thrilled to see entertainment precincts are now.
Do you want to explain to us what an
entertainment?
Can you give us an idea of what an entertainment precinct will look like and where there might be one?
Right. Well, have you ever been to Fortitude Valley in Queensland, in Brisbane, where you've got a density of nightclubs and the entertainment and venues? Entertainment is the dominant land use. Residential is subordinate to that. Why precincts are important is they cut the duplication. Regulate sound in New South Wales. Not anymore. The definitions in the laws now say sound. We're getting back to science and measurable and quantifiable assessments for venues. So with a precinct or an overlay, you've only got a single agency to regulate sound, and that'll be the local council. If the local council's regulating sound, they can align their planning controls, set the land use, set the ground rules, align the residential development. The definition that we have now in New South Wales is quite. It's very simple. It's neater than I won't say neater. It's a bit simpler than the Queensland model. I won't go into the details, but the principles are there. It's a single. The council looks after it, so it can just be an overlay over a single venue, and this is what we like about it, that it can just be a single venue. And council, like precincts, could be a street or a venue or a block or whatever, but this means that council could say, okay, this business, we are going to take care of the assessment. We're going to design the streetscape and make sure everybody is able to align, set the ground rules, cut the duplication, and they get extended trading. So this is in the Liquor Act.
You know, being a worker from the 80s or even the 70s in King's Cross, and understanding that you would have nothing but venues everywhere. I remember doing 3 gigs on a Saturday night in King's Cross. 3 different venues. And that was what it was all about. And then you'd work every night, sometimes 2 nights a week on a Thursday or something at, the All Nations Club, and then at around midnight or, any one of those other venues. There was always multiple gigs. But we seem to have lost King's Cross now to residential.
Look, we have, but I think if you look through time, there are contours. Little Paddy was at Maroubra. There've always been scenes. Now, when I got out of school, King's Cross was mind-blowing, and Round Midnight was my favourite place on earth. To see Jackie Ozowski at 2 or 3 in the morning and that place heaving, that was just, and the bourbon and all of that. This is about building new spaces. Look at what's happening with Marrickville. Look at... once the legislation's got through, my phone has just been rocking with people working for local councils in New South Wales saying, John, can we talk? I really want to see how we can use this to create more creative precincts and night economies. The night economies that are going to grow from here are going to be in places where people want them to happen. Yeah. And I think that's going to be really interesting, that the tools are now going to be available. Councils forever and a day have been saying, we want to be doing this stuff. We want night economies, but the state government has all the levers. Well, now the ball's back in the council's court because they've got all the tools they need.
This is exciting,
really exciting, because
this is really exciting. Yeah. I know I'm older and don't go out as much anymore, but I know that if there were venues up on Oxford Street that I could just walk up to and see something, then I'd be doing it a
Yeah.
lot more, and it's amazing. I know there are areas around, like I know down at Chinatown, there's an amazing area down there, and that's just kind of popped up. And there's also the Barangaroo area, which is incredible. And do you think we might get those sort of areas opening up?
I'm really interested to see what's going to happen in places like Sydenham, in Brookvale.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Sydenham there. I mean, that's
right.
just...
See, now we're getting back to community.
Council tried to... Right. Look at Brookvale. Look at the potential there with all the microbreweries. There are. I mean, Newcastle. I've one of the first councils to book me in for a meet briefing for council in the first week in February. In regional New South Wales, there's going to be incredible opportunities because I think there are the red tape reduction and the coordination of it is industrial.
I think also that, like in regional areas, we have a town where not so many people live, correct?
Right. Well, let's look at South Wollongong. Look at Port Kembla. There are, there's building stock in, and so how many country towns have got building stock in transition on their main streets? Lots of them.
Yeah.
Many of them.
Yeah.
There's a new specification in the building code, another law reform I'm so thrilled about, that says if you're 300 metres squared, or you're on the ground floor or first floor basement, you can have retail level fire safety and be a primary purpose venue. So not theatre level fire safety.
Right.
This is going to enable smaller retail building stock to become primary purpose performance venues.
Fantastic, man.
Yeah.
Whoa, I'm just really excited about what the implications for all of this is. This is a major turning point for us, for our nighttime economy. This is incredible.
I've got international colleagues who I talk to, I'm close to, in Shane Shapiro from Sound Diplomacy from England and Canada.
Okay, John's
Beck,
there.
Who's a leading thinker. Yeah, here we go. This way. New South Wales has gone from having festival regulation and lockouts to now having this suite of regulations that we are just saying this is just globally incredible. Best practice. Yeah.
Talk to me about the law that may have or may have not been changed about somebody moving into an area that already has entertainment and getting them to close down the pub.
Okay, so there's a number of ways that you can approach this. Agent of change is a principle that I think you're referring to, which is a planning principle that says that new development has to be sensitive to the existing land use.
Right.
I'm not a huge fan of that. I'm a fan of precincts, because what Agent of Change doesn't do is if there's no venues there in a night economy area, your residential development doesn't need to be built to attenuate sound to the same degree. So with COVID, we may well see an attrition of venues. With the lockouts, we've seen an attrition of venues. But if you've got a precinct, well, that's where the venues live.
Yeah.
And if King's Cross was an entertainment precinct, then the land use is designated. And whether there's a venue there or not, you're going to build fit for purpose. Your residential is going to have the acoustic privacy that would be required whether there's venues there or not. So I'm in the precincts camp, and that's what New South Wales has from here.
Yeah. I love this idea. I mean, this is, again, we're getting back to what we should be doing in every area of society is getting back to a community-based system whereby, the people grow the food and sell it at the local markets, and we shop locally, and we get all our laundry done at the laundry place down the road, not, on the way to work. Or, I love this idea.
Local.
And a local economy is the way it should be. And this is what this is getting back to. And I love this concept. And I just want to make one point, just to close off. Agent of change is a really useful principle, and it's been really important in Victoria, and it's really important
It's a common sense response, and it resonates with people.
You're going to have to explain agent of change to the people, just so they know what you're talking about.
Well, yeah, agent of change is where either a new venue comes into a neighbourhood and needs to attenuate all the sound, or residential, somebody moves in next to a pub or a venue or builds next to it and they've got to attenuate the sound. So it doesn't deal with the duplication. You're still going to have 7 agencies. The precinct says that's where the night economy is, and we'll have a single regulation. So that's why, from my desk, I'm an advocate for that. And I've worked really closely with Frank Henry from Brisbane, who designed the Valley and those laws. I've worked with Gold Coast and Sunshine Coast on their precincts, and so we know how we know how it works. I think I'm thrilled to see it in New South Wales from here.
Yeah. Great. I love it, John. I love it. Listen, let me just address a couple of questions here. The audio and video is slightly out of sync. I asked Randy. He said it's not okay. Yes. The problem is that we're running via OBS, and that is the way that Zoom works with OBS. They don't connect up real well. But if you can deal with it, we'll try not to move too much. All right. Second thing is,
and I'm in regional New South Wales with terrible internet. So.
That's right. Tanti, you've got some questions there. Do you want to hit some questions up for John?
Oh yeah. Paul Travascus asks, is there anything similar happening in Victoria, John? The initiatives.
Well, Victoria's got some fantastic, regulations and laws. Some of the things that's happening here in New South Wales are catching up to what Victoria have had for a long time. Mm-hmm. For example, for small bars, getting your planning approval and getting that sorted, and then getting your liquor license, that's how things work in Victoria. Okay, whereas in New South Wales, they've been parallel. So that's been a really problematic issue, a structural, chronic problem for businesses in our state. There was one amendment to the legislation that I was able to work on with colleagues in Victoria that to the planning scheme, and that passed, I think, around the 23rd of October in Victoria. Well, we grabbed that straight away, and it was in the Parliament for New South Wales just weeks later. Yeah. Looking to the and that's going to support the Victorian community working towards the precincts. Victoria have agent of change in their planning scheme. Mm-hmm. And that's been really effective in holding the line, particularly in the city of Melbourne. I think, talking to Victorian colleagues, a precinct-based approach will also support venues as well. So I think that's going to be an emerging theme for Victoria. There's other things under the bonnet that Victoria have had for a long time around how they assess, balancing the assessment of liquor licensed premises. Victorians, there's harm, risk, saturation, density, but also employment, art, culture. This is part of the planning process in Victoria, applying for licenses. We've now got that in New South Wales in the Liquor Act and the planning scheme. So these principles, but Victoria still has entertainment conditions on liquor licenses, like no rock and disco and all of that. So there's work to do there on those sorts of things. So we're all learn from each other. If looking at the legislation, there are things that we took from parts of the country. Precincts, we took that from Queensland. It's looking at the legislation, you'll see they're pretty much comparable. In Northern Territory, you get a 10% discount on your liquor licence if you have original live music. We took that principle and now have 80% for base fees for primary venues and 80% for capacity loading. In Western Australia, they have, when you're applying for a liquor licence, they take into account employment in arts, culture, tourism. We've taken that principle, and it's in the objectives of the Act, it's in the application process, and it's in the decision-making process. Wow. Jobs, arts, culture, tourism. That's now what that does. It rebalances the liquor licensing, the structure of how the regulations work. Usually, it's about public health and safety, and absolutely fundamental risk, harm, safety, density, saturation. But now it's rebalanced to look at arts, culture, employment, tourism. So that principle from WA. From South Australia, we got the exempt development that's going to help retail. We got the small arts venue in the building code. Canberra's got working on precincts as well. So we've really been able to grab all of the best principles from around Australia and see them in the law as they are now.
I am so excited by this. I can't withhold my desire for it to change, and I'm absolutely blown out. You must be pretty over the moon about it yourself, mate. I mean, that's a massive change to, because for years we've gone through the music industry's dying. There's no venues. I mean, there are venues, but like people have struggled for a long time with this, and now you've just made these massive sweeping changes. You must be pretty proud of yourself.
Oh, look, there's always plenty to do, Peter. It's a bit of a whirlwind, and you've got to. I've got to reference the ministers. We need to reference John Graham and the Labor team.
Sure,
my colleague Nicholas Pickard.
Sure, man. But you've made these changes. You've gotten into this and made this change. This is like first of all, I don't know how you find the time. But second of all, what a sweeping change you've made, and I can see already just by what you're talking about, I can see the whole nighttime economy changing. I know once we get through COVID, but now's the time to set up things. Correct? Now's the time to kind of get things running and get them moving, so that when we are free of this virus to at least some extent, we're ready to go.
It's going to be really interesting to see where local councils land on this, because they're the ones now with the tools and the opportunities, and there's going to be young planners and arts and cultural workers who are going to want to get to work and say, we've got stuff to work with. Look, I think COVID is incredibly tough at the moment, I mean, the festival situation is deeply concerning. I know we're going to have some of the agents now who have shows coming through. All of that stuff is now in abeyance. But I think from the venue-based building stock, it's really interesting and really exciting time in New South Wales. Yeah.
I love it. Tanti, anything else?
Oh, well, your answer was so comprehensive. It addressed ruler, Angelopolis. I think you that would have answered, can we learn anything from Melbourne? And also
can I say what?
Yeah.
From my desk in the
Sorry, Ruth was just saying, what responses have you had from other state bodies and governments, John? So you've pretty much covered that with your last answer. Thanks.
COVID hit South Australia. There's also measures for COVID in here around the use of roads, the Roads Act amendment, and the use of footpaths, and that will provide temporary powers for councils to activate outdoor dining and entertainment. So those are some really important powers that are a great opportunity for councils. Regarding other states and territories, look, absolutely, there's a precincts discussion happening in Perth at the moment. Consultation closes tomorrow. So if anybody wants to get onto the City of Perth Department website. So talking to Western Australia, definitely talking to South Australia, and Victorian colleagues, of course. So it's an ongoing thing. I am going to do a bit more fishing before some of those conversations resume. But I mean, that's but globally, I think this has really impacted globally. Where in the United Kingdom, where they've got the separation between liquor and planning, and seeing the steps that are now taken here in North America, looking at how these can apply at the provincial, the local level. It's really thrilling. And back to your point, Peter. I probably could have spent the next 10 or 15, 20 years doing this and maybe not get it all over the line. Usually when we work on a law reform, it's one or two at a time. It's a single instrument. It's the Liquor Act. It's a planning instrument, or it's the environmental protection side of things. This has got the Liquor Act and regulation. It's got the Planning Act and regulation. It's got the building code. It's got exempt development. It's got the use of roads. It is really, and I think that is truly incredible to do it all at once and it fits together like a puzzle.
Fantastic. I can see it. I mean, it's the way it should have been for decades, but I can see it's
Right.
taken a lot of work to get there. Tell me, how did the government respond to all these changes?
The government have been incredible. They've been very, very good. And I think, as the bill, when it was first introduced, I went to see a couple of the minister's advisors. And, this was the day Gladys was giving her press conference where she, had some things to deal with. And at the same time, I was in some boardrooms and just saying, look, you've got a 24-hour economy strategy, but we've been through the inquiries. These are the tools that we need to deliver the strategy. They're recognised, they've been evaluated, they've been recommended, but they're not in the bill. So, let's have a look at this. And, to see, Stuart Ayres' team have just been incredible. His advisor is, these people are very much, there's no hearts and minds battle. The Chief of Staff to the Liquor Licensing Minister, these are very wise, terrific people who have really taken all this on board and got behind it and wrangled the agencies. I was thrilled to see how Rob Stokes, the Planning Minister, understood what we were doing with the building code, with exempt development. There was one amendment that really that held the legislation up for a couple of weeks, and that was around the use of the councils having powers to modify consents. This is around conditions on, genres, how many musicians, giving councils broad powers to remove conditions. But really, we're able to find a way through that. And,
what were the problems? What was the problem there? Like, explain that to us.
The problem is to give a council a broad power to change planning approvals and say, okay, we've got all these development consents. We're just going to, with a stroke of pen, get rid of all those conditions off every licensed premises in our local government area. Just that principle of saying in a planning, it's about communities and participation and the role of the community in participating in the planning process. And so this was this one amendment, and right up to the wire, we were outside the chamber as the legislation was about to be brought in. This is the one where the Greens played a role, and Kate Fairman from the Greens, it was quite an interesting space. I don't usually talk about the conversations that I had, but this was one where the government said, look, we've got to cut a deal. They came to me and said, can you talk to the Labor team and see if they can come around on this? And I said, look, I can, but I don't think they would. I just don't think they would. They're just so committed to this. So, okay, that conversation ended quickly. And, got off the phone. Everybody came around and landed on something that I think is okay. It
it's a shame
that principle.
It's a shame that it even has to come to that for the purpose of what's being done. It's a shame that it even has to come to a situation of making a deal.
Well,
it's like,
but this is all about there's many ways to land on outcomes. I mean, these are really live scenarios. When a bill is in the House, you can get your pen out and you can make changes, put a line to people doing this, putting lines through it, saying, let's change that word. These are living, breathing things. And that's, I guess, where you, having myself and my colleague around who've been political parliamentary staffers, have worked on legislation around the country and in New South Wales, so that you can say, yes, okay, being there at the time, in the mix as it's being drafted, as it's being discussed. And
John's just frozen again. Tanti, John, you're frozen again. No, you're back.
It was industrial. It was fast, intense experience, that one instrument at a time. This was all of them. And I think that is incredibly unique and special that this was able to happen. The government, there was a real meeting of the government ministers, John Graham and the Labor team, the crossbench. And if you read the Hansard, the deputy chair and people are saying this is incredible. In all of our years of Parliament, we have never seen so many amendments, so much cooperation, so much collaboration. So it just never happened, and it just happened within a matter of weeks, and now it's done.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you think that it happened so quickly because in part due to COVID and its implications?
I think, COVID definitely plays a role here. And from my desk and our desk and an industry desk going to government saying, look, we've had inquiries, we've had lockouts, we've got COVID. If we can't do it now, we never will.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great.
So good, John. So good, mate. So fucking amazingly good what you've done. I'm just really excited to see what's going to happen now.
Yeah.
And I love the precinct idea. I think it's I mean, for want of a better word, it is a community, and that's what we really need. And it's going to be interesting to see, like you say, we've already got it sort of happening in Sydenham and Marrickville. I'm wondering what's going to happen, because I remember, because I moved into a block away from Oxford Street in '95, and it was pumping back then. Now, maybe it wasn't all live music. It was all, a lot of clubs, a lot of dance clubs and etc. But still, it was a pumping an economy. It was just on fire. And I've seen it diminish. And not only have I seen that diminish, but I've seen the community diminish. All the not only the venues closing down, but the shops closing down, and the clothes shops, little homey sort of shops have just gone. There used to be a great place called the Pop Shop, and it just sold wacky stuff, and it's gone. And everything like that's gone now. However, I'm starting to see a couple of little venues roll up. Like there's the Low Bar, there's, what I mean, around Surrey Hills, they're starting to open up. I'd really like to see more of that stuff going on.
Well, I think it's around land use and economies. That really granular, fine grain activation. That's stuff the City of Sydney have been really trying to do for a long, long time.
Have we been fighting with developers? Is that what part of it's due to?
Well, look, I don't know that you can fight with developers.
I don't mean as in a fight. I mean, have we been working against developers?
Well, it's about the economy of scale. If you're going to have a viable business and you need to pay inner city rents, you're going to have a particular amount of turnover, and that's going to dictate the character of your business. Yeah. So if you want, if you're looking for fine grain, sort of creative and more edgy type of businesses, that's going to be where they're affordable, where the building stock is going to be affordable. So.
See, what happens in the process is that all these you see it everywhere now. Any little shopping centre along Parramatta Road or anywhere along Oxford Street, all the way up past Paddington, it's all empty shops.
Yeah,
they're all empty shops.
Yeah, I think. Look, we've now got exempt development where low impact entertainment can happen within retail spaces. We've got a small music and arts venue building code that will make it easier to transition retail building stock into primary performance venues. Yeah, I'd love to see, these are really simple and they're very neat. They're fit for the suburbs and the bush as well as the inner city. That's what I love about what we're able to do is that they're not overly complicated. When I chaired a task force for the Clover Moore of the City of Sydney in 2013 and 14 that took a list of strategies to the city around the building code and exempt development and precincts. They're still going through council. That they were still on exhibition the day the exhibition closed. The day after we got these new laws through the Parliament. So I'm hoping that we can just get on with these really simple things that we're doing at the state level and not be too tricky or complicated about things.
Yeah. Look, I love this. I think it's amazing. As I said before, I think that this is going to hopefully, open up more venues, become more of a community, and maybe in the process, with all the discounted fees that the venues will be paying now, that some of this may trickle over to some of the musicians, or at least have more work for musicians now, which is more than anything anyone can ask for. John, look, there are 63 changes, and I'm not going to ask you to go through each and every one of them, but if people want to know, where do they go and see where these changes are?
Look, the Liquor Act, much of the Liquor Act amendments have commenced, and look, I'd encourage people to go to primary sources. The planning side of things, the practice notes are going to land into next year. The legislation has commenced, but you don't want to go looking at the legislation. I'd be sitting get through New Year, and the end of January, and by February we'll start to see some things building. The entertainment precincts are going to commence in I think about halfway through next year, as are some of the changes to the Liquor Act. Some of it are going to commence in months ahead.
Okay.
Everybody who's been working on this is toasted, and I've come back from holidays for this, but my email is down. I'm out. I'm going fishing and playing pedal steel for the next month. So you won't get much out of me.
Yeah. Look, you've been so instrumental in making our lives better in many ways as musicians, and I'm proud to have you on this show. If there's one thing that people can do to remain in touch with what's going on, do they like your page, or do you have what website, or is there something where that they can always see? Because we're on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch now. Where do they go?
I think for the legislation, I think if it's about liquor licensing, go to Liquor and Gaming New South Wales, and many of their resources are up there. Yeah. I encourage people to go to primary sources about this stuff. Go to the department websites. Mm-hmm. If you need entertainment for planning, if you want some clarity about that from Department of Planning, hit in planning in New South Wales or whichever state you're in. Okay. For the live music office, look, we'll be back on deck into next year. But I will be referencing the primary sources. I won't be making, I prefer to be saying, okay, well, that's your primary source. Otherwise, I'd be linking to legislation, and that's not necessarily useful to people unless you're a policy thinker. I guess
where I'm getting at is, most of the audience here, that they will, I mean, even myself, I will never go to a government website. If I'm scrolling Facebook, I can see something change. I'll get into that. So, do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, is there a John Wardle page that we can all just go and see what you're coming up with?
Look. Yeah, the Live Music Office website has.
That's right. That's what we need.
References. So So if you go to the Live Music Office website, I've got a couple of things up there about this and other programs. But look, if there's one government website that I think you should be going to, Peter, and musicians, whatever state you're in. That's your arts, whether it's whether it's in Victoria or Create New South Wales, looking at the grants that are available. There's grants from the federal government.
That's what I wanted to get onto you. I want to get onto that now.
So let's talk about grants.
Okay, let's talk about grants. So you've just become on the board of the Contemporary Music Board, is that correct?
Yeah, I joined the Contemporary Music Art Form Board for Create New South Wales in September of this year. So I'm involved there in grants.
Tell me what they do, grants. John. Just tell us all what they do.
And I'm also a peer assessor in South Australia as well on their grant rounds for contemporary music. So, these are often a contested space, and but there's a real push from Create New South Wales in particular, and Ben, the chair, to more engagement from musicians in New South Wales to be applying for grants. There haven't been, I'm not going to say numbers, but there were just many, many more grant applications in South Australia than there were in the last grant round in New South Wales.
I wonder why that is.
And I think it could be for a number of reasons. I think there can be confidence issues that people aren't always just think that they're not going to have a chance. But you need to be involved if you're going to have a chance
We've talked about this before.
Being supported. We have.
And
I just think
you know, I'm the sort of school of what's the point? Because when you see what the money goes towards, and you see the people that get the grants, you kind of wonder, what the fuck am I trying for? I don't have a harmonic nose flute.
I think from my desk, I'm interested to see where we can go with guidelines and if there's any room to move. I'm interested in data. I'm interested in what's available. If we could understand more about the process. All of the grants now are within a program called Smarty Grants, and it's very easy to pull data sets out of there. How old applicants are, what genres what sort of music they play, where they live, what their programs are. So I think if we could get some more data and have some more discussions around this and then bring the community in, I think the music community should have the opportunity to be able to evaluate the programs, have a look at how they're going and be involved in them. So
absolutely, and we've talked about this. We have talked about this, and for people that have not heard us before, that there wasn't one musician on the grant application board. That was a separate case where there was a team put together to write a contemporary music strategy. And there's lots of peak bodies who are really important, our APRA Live Music Office, Music New South Wales. There's lots of, there are priority areas such as First Nations people, Western Sydney Regional. And really the chairs fill up quite quickly around the table when these things are coming together. And there was a case where the chairs were all full and there wasn't a professional musician enabled. But I think in the Contemporary Music Art Form Board at the moment, you've got quite a diverse range of people. And I mean, look, for me, I'm a pedal steel player. I've been on the road for years playing country music in honky tonks. So, you know, I'm not a nose flute by any means. But I think, I understand absolutely where you're coming from, Peter. And I think hopefully if people see more people like myself on these art form boards, they'll say, okay, so we've got people who are like us, who are part of our community, and we will have. But you got to be in it to win it, and let's think about it. If you're after $20,000 or $30,000, you probably want to put a good case up for it, and so it's okay to put some work in. But the issue, John, was that the $20,000, you might only get 12 of that because you've had to pay for a grant writer to do the job for you to write the right grant, right? So hopefully we can eliminate that side of things, not and maybe get to the core of what these people need the money for, not for somebody to write a synopsis of somebody else's grant. You know, I mean, I've done it many times, and I've tried to be elaborate. And then I realized that nobody wants all this stuff. They don't want all these ideas. But yet, how can I get across my idea to somebody without being elaborate?
Right.
So then I go, well, should I employ a grant writer who'd be able to do the job? And it's like, what the fuck for? What's the point?
Yeah.
You know. So it's very messy. Look, I want to move on because we're right on the hour now. This has been amazing. Tanti, do you want to give us some ideas or some questions of what's been going on online?
All right. So another question from Paul Travascus. Do the grants available cater for the weekend musicians or just the professionals? So I guess it depends on what grant it is, isn't it? It's more about what it is that you're offering.
You got to put the case forward, you know, whatever you're trying to do. Okay, so I'll give you a case where you say weekend musicians. The recent grant round in South Australia was a venue grant round, and venues that had original music and cover bands were supported. So if you were a venue that had cover bands, you could be supported through that. So I guess that might be an area where, but I think when you're, when you're applying for a grant, depending on where it is, I mean, that was a particular grant round, but usually it's around original music. There are priority areas, and those are what people are assessing when they get all of when you get your grants to review. These are the key priority areas that you're looking at, and I think with the weekend musicians, look, if people are going to work hard and put in a solid grant application, they've written some great music, they've got a vision, and they're going to have a go, then whether you're a weekend, what's a weekend musician? Most
musicians are weekend musicians.
Side angles.
Yeah,
they're teaching, or they've got a retail job, or they're delivering coffee for a day, or they're doing something. I think the days where, everyone on the bandstand, all they did was play gigs. That was in King's Cross when I got out of school. Right. It's not where we are today.
No, that's right. Yeah. It's really about getting a great idea, isn't it? It's about having an idea that can work, and maybe have the foresight of more employment for other people, and create an onswell of ideas from one idea. So it doesn't matter whether you're a weekend musician or which most musicians are anyway, weekend musicians.
I was really interested in Great Southern Nights. That was a really serious investment.
I was going to ask about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did a whole bunch of those gigs, and we're still waiting to be paid.
Oh, okay. Well, look, there was. And just around weekend gigs, I was talking to some regional promoters, and they were saying, I've got some bands, but they mostly do covers. And I said, well, fantastic. This is an opportunity for those artists to play their original music that they never get a chance to play.
Yeah.
And feature them to play that. And that's been amazing for that. So I think opportunity, you can use these structures to create opportunities.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
And Great Southern Nights was a great initiative, but there was just so much crammed into the month, and also because a lot of the events that were happening at the start of November, is that you were publicising it only from November. They may have not got enough time for the news to get out to publicise their event, because there was a big bang announcement towards the end of October. But the events at the latter part of October seem to have done really well. So I went to a number of them, and I really hope that there can be sort of more initiatives like that. Not necessarily 1,000. It could be 20 in a month or so forth. And I hope that can.
The event worked. I guess it worked in some ways because people were starving for entertainment. I guess leaving the logistics of advertising and all that to a government, forget it. Forget it. You've got to do it yourself anyway, right? And I think that it's a great idea, and it'll hopefully come back, and we'll do some more of those sort of things because we need those sort of things, especially to get booted on after COVID. So yes.
I think we have to recognise the investment from the New South Wales Liberal National Government.
Yeah,
that they invested millions of dollars in our industry, and they've done worked with the Labor team and the Parliament to really, they got rid of the lockouts from the city. They've delivered some of the best entertainment regulation that we've ever seen.
Yeah, and
hopefully more to come.
I love the way you do that, John. I mean, that I'm not anti-government. I think the government's done an amazing job.
Yeah.
But there's a part of me that just goes, and you go. I think we've got to recognise that the government has done a wonderful job, which is beautiful. I love it.
They have.
And I agree with you in every area in that regard. I guess there's a bit of me that just goes, come on, pull your fingers out. But that's just the way I work.
There is some lessons that can be learned from Great Southern Nights.
That's right.
Yeah, and
Yeah, but I could have told them those lessons. Tanti, carry on. What were we going to say?
no. Listen. So yeah, it was more about how they wanted to make a big announcement at the start of November. So so a lot of venues, a lot of events didn't get enough time to publicize.
Yeah, that's right.
Look,
so
what a great argument for reinvestment. What a great argument to reinvest and to have it and to say, well, let's build on a really exciting initiative that benefited many working musicians across the city and regional New South Wales.
Yeah. And what it did result in, there was a great website where it publicised all the gigs and had it set out by venue, by area, and really, I think what we need is a comprehensive gig guide. You know, we used to have it in the Metro every Friday.
Many have tried, and then many have tried even online. You know, many have tried, but people don't do it. I think that it's. I don't know. I don't know what the answer there is. I mean, there used to be the magazine and the piece of paper that you pick up, and that was always great. But I don't know whether that's going to come back because it's paper, and who looks at paper? Anyway,
I know what the answer.
I want to close up the meeting. I want to close up the meeting very soon. Is there anything else that we need to hear from people online?
No. I was just going to say there's always a comment. Oh, I wish I had known about that gig. So you know, there's always if there was a common place where people could advertise their gigs, that would be great. Grant applications we've covered. We've covered all about the all the changes. We've got a lot to build on. You know, especially after six years, wasn't it, of lockouts? 6 years of lockouts in Sydney, and I think well,
they're still there in King's Cross.
They're still there in King's Cross.
But maybe in January the review will land in January. So let's hope that they might expire next month. Yeah.
Well, look,
it's not going to recover overnight, but it will recover, right? Yeah.
That's right.
They're still in place in Newcastle as well.
I am really, really super positive about what we've talked about tonight, about these changes to laws, about venues opening up. I have a really positive vibe about this, and I'm really excited to see what happens. You know, we've been pumping out musicians from a lot of the music schools, like the JMC Academy, the AIM, and the dance schools and all that sort of stuff. We've been pumping them out like these kids to nowhere. It's like pushing them out into this wide world of nothing. And I got this vibe now that all those people are going to start working. And I'm really, really positive about this. And I'm really excited to see what goes on. I guess my advice now is, if you're a musician, create something. Because you'll have a platform to expose it to, and very soon. And I think that now is the time to start being creative, especially with the lockdowns that we're in now. I mean, even if it takes 2 weeks before we get out of this, now's 2 weeks. Now's the time to start doing something, creating something, whether it be a bunch of original songs with a bunch of people, or a show of some sort, or even a tribute act, or whatever it is. Now is the time to start creating, because we're going to have very soon some incredible venues. And John, thanks to you and your team and John Graham and everybody else involved in it. It's such a positive thing, man. I don't know how to thank you from everybody else, but I can only thank you from myself for the work that you've put into it, because I know it's no easy, mean task. You know, it's a simple thing, no simple thing that you've done. I am in awe of your patience and your tenacity to keep at it and keep doing what you've been doing. And thank God we have somebody like you in our industry. I think, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know what this is all about, I think you need to kind of hook up with John and go to the Live Music Task Force website, Live Music Office, and be aware of what's going on, because some things are about to change. John, thank you, mate. Have you got any final words you want to say?
Look. It's a shame John Graham couldn't make it today, and maybe if you're going to carry on into next year. How many of these have you done this year?
This is number 27.
Quite a few. Are you looking?
This is a whole half of a year.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know if you're going to keep going, but if you're going to keep going, it'd be great. If and maybe some of the government and the crossbench bring some of the people involved. I think it'd be really entertaining to hear John's take on this.
I'd love to do that. Yeah,
there's some funny stories around, but very serious. Very serious achievements for everyone who was a part of this.
Yeah.
Amazing job, and I applaud you, mates. Congratulations to you, and congratulations to everybody who's worked on this. 63 laws or amendments to something that will help and inspire our industry. What an achievement! Congratulations! I'm clapping you. I'm applauding you, mate. Fantastic. Well done, Tanti. Thank you for being here. I'm going to close up the stream now. We are back in a fortnight.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tanti.
Yeah.
You were going to say?
Yeah. I was just going to say, just thank everyone that's participated in ISO talks this year.
Yes.
This is number 27. John's been a guest 4 times.
4 times, and that's not enough, I don't reckon.
No doubt we'll have him back as well. But we've had a range of guest musicians, people representing government. Venue operators,
everything,
musicians, guitarists, singers. Yeah, we've covered everything. So
it's been an amazing year. We will be back next year. We might take a break over Christmas and all that sort of stuff, but we will be back. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for watching tonight, and thank you for your comments. I'm going to close up the stream now, and you guys stay online, and we'll say goodbye to each other. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Everyone.